good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Hello and welcome to Science to Data Science. This is particularly for PhDs and postdocs and also master students that might be moving from academia to startups and industry in pursuit of a data career. So this is what this is about, Science to Data Science. Good evening, Macarena, who is co-hosting with me tonight.
Good evening, Chris. Good evening, everybody.
So we've been doing this for quite a while. This is, I don't know, edition 40 or so. So we have some experience in doing this, and we are here today to answer your questions. To help you come up with more and better questions, we actually, as usual, have a presentation prepared that runs to some 40 slides or so. So background information, thoughts that we've had, guidance that we can give, other information that might be useful. So all of this is available, but above all, this is your opportunity actually to ask us questions, to comment, to engage with us, and so on. So there's a chat function. There is a chat function that you should be able to use on YouTube or LinkedIn or wherever you're watching this. So you should be able to type questions. So I'm going to do this here right away so you can see. Type the hello and welcome. This will go out to YouTube and Facebook actually. If you're watching on LinkedIn, you also have the chat function. Okay, and with that, I think we're going to go and get started. So, science to data science, how to start a data career, how to start a data career successfully, and how to start it fast. In front of you, you see 10 examples, members of the AI Guild. Macarena, who's here tonight, is one of those. I just want you to glance at those 10 examples, see the variety of names, see the variety of disciplines, mathematics, economics, biology, physics, social sciences, really a variety of disciplines, of a variety of people. So here we have six women and 4 men from all kinds of different countries, all enjoying a data career. And this is the point of this slide. So it's to say, wherever you're coming from, if you have a numerate background, then a data career for you is possible. About the other requirements, we will talk in a minute, but this is it, the numerate background. So with that, Macarena, over to you and a chance to get to know her. It still says data scientist at Kenjo. Is that actually correct?
No, it's not correct.
No. then perhaps please start off with correcting that. Yes, Macarena's just moved.
Yes. Well, I'm a biologist by training. I did my PhD in biology in Argentina, where I come from. Then moved to Germany with a fellowship and worked in research for several years as a postdoc. While I was still working in research, I started working with bioinformatic tools and programming at that moment in R. And then at a certain point, I decided I didn't want to stay in research any longer, and I started thinking about a data career, but not actually so directly, because first I did a more formal training in bioinformatics in Berlin. Then while I was doing that and already programming in Python, and I decided, okay, that eventually I liked to work with data, and I didn't feel I had to stick to biological data. So immediately after that, I joined a data science bootcamp in Berlin, where I met Chris, who was the director at the moment. And after I finished that bootcamp, I started working as a data scientist, first as a consultant in 2 different companies, and then I moved to a startup. At the time it was Kencho. And then since November, I started in another startup in Berlin. It's called Like-Minded. And I can tell you a little bit more about later when we talk about the differences between consultancies, startups, and so on.
Thank you, Macarena. So if you have questions for Macarena about her career or how she achieved the change, you can start asking. Sorry, moving on. So typically part of the team is also Dina Daifala. She's a data science teacher in Berlin at the moment. She has a PhD in communications engineering from the American University in Cairo in Egypt and lives in Berlin currently. She can't be with us tonight, but if you're out of engineering, you have questions for Dina, you can go and find her on LinkedIn, just like you can find Macarena and I on LinkedIn as well. So I also have that PhD. I'm an alumnus of the Max Planck Society, spent some time at the European University Institute as a Jean Monnet Fellow, and hold a UK PhD. I originally come out of innovations research, so actually the social sciences, with also a numerate enough background, if you so like, through statistics. So, question for you, Macarena, actually already popping up. Did you have any programming background before the data science bootcamp?
Yes. I started first programming in R while I was still doing research, and then later I started programming in Python and also SQL before I joined the bootcamp. Yes.
Indeed. So, why are we running this event? Why have we been running this event for quite a while? So you're looking at a quote from somebody called Jean-François Garnier, French-Canadian entrepreneur in the AI space that actually founded a startup together with Joshua Benjo, one of the key researchers in deep learning. So he said, no matter who you are, self-improvement is one of the most important and most overlooked attributes of young AI talent. It only takes 4 years of experience to become a senior or 5 years of experience to lead. The determination and discipline to improve both the hard and soft skills continuously will be the deciding factor. So the point here is simply data career is a thing. That's why you're here, you know this. Also, we'll explain in a minute, the golden age of data careers is only just coming. It's only just coming in the sense that, sorry, I'm just looking for another slide. Yep, here we go. It's only just coming in the sense that also by Jean-François Garnier, we have data showing that in 2020, 2021, we had about 500,000 professionals worldwide. He's been doing research on this and has numbers also from earlier, whereby in 2016 we were only at 50,000. So within the space of 4 to 5 years, we had a tenfold increase. Now, the 500,000 still pales in comparison to the software professionals, which by 2020, 2021 were around 15 million. So, 30 times more. We can now have a debate about whether there will be exactly as many data professionals as there will be software professionals, but there will be an increase. And 500,000 actually means there really is a professional field. 50,000 worldwide isn't a lot. And when I was the director of the bootcamp and Macarena started out, the lone data scientist was really still a thing. Yeah, a company with one data scientist or maybe two. Now most companies have understood that they need teams and they're hiring for bigger teams. And this is the meaning of this. So it's come into existence. It's now a serious thing. The numbers of professionals will grow very rapidly over the coming years. And this precisely is the opportunity and why this quote from Jean-François Garnier still holds. Yeah. If you have a NUMED background and you're willing to learn programming, or you already have programming experience, particularly Python or SQL, then this is a possible move forward. Okay, so what we want to do for you tonight is, starting a data career, discuss, take your questions, give you a roadmap to getting hired as simple as possible, talk to you really pragmatically about the industry-ready CV, so what you actually need to do to get interviews and get an offer on the table. And if we have time at the end, close out with an outlook over the next 10 to 20 years. There's more online support available that you've had also seen in your email if you would like. So starting a data career. So it's still the fastest growing labor market for the highly qualified. I've spoken already to the fact that we had 500,000 like a couple of years ago. It's reasonable to expect that it's going to be 5 to 10 million by the end of the decade. So that's a really significant increase. It is really open to numerate MSCs and masters and PhDs from any discipline. Prior programming experience with Python and or SQL is really a must-have. And then there are other things that you need to be aware of. Moving forward, actually, Macarena, over to you. You did a PhD quite a while
Yes.
ago, and you also spent some time in academia afterwards. Can you perhaps
Yes.
talk about, the moment of your transition, how you organized this, and actually also, I mean, you did it like 5 years ago. Great. If you were a PhD today, how would you do this?
Well, I think that it's a good. I mean, my advice would be to switch as soon as possible, as the slide says. I mean, as soon as you have the idea that you want to leave academia, just start planning doing so. I think that's the best you can do. I, for a while, didn't have the idea to leave academia. That's why I didn't do it after my PhD immediately. But then this idea came afterwards. I know that if you spend several years in academia, it's also sometimes not so easy to think about possibilities of jobs outside academia, because you think that you've already invested many years, and you should stay. But my advice would be just do it as soon as you have the idea to do it, and start preparing at least yourself, getting ready for the transition. There is a question about how I mean, about the level of Python and programming that is acceptable for a data scientist. I would say that basic is not enough. You should try to be more experienced. But of course, this also takes time. But try to start as soon as possible and practice as much as you can.
Yes, and I also have an additional take on this. So, you have a master's degree or you have a PhD degree, and you're here also because you're numerate and you're interested in this. I think it's important to always keep in mind that this is actually the key qualification. The numeracy, your training, your really decade-long training if it's a PhD. And this is not something you can acquire quickly or replace or learn on an online learning platform. This is your real investment. And compared to that, Python and SQL as tools are something that you can learn. Of course, Macarena already pointed out to the fact that just beginner's level doesn't do it any longer. So yes, the bar,
Sorry,
the bar
not
is
for
going
data.
up.
Exactly, not for data scientists. But as you pointed
Okay.
out, for data analysts, that should work.
Exactly. So for every, as the field is becoming more established, the bar tends to go up. Yes. But then also something that I've learned over the past years is, years ago when I went around, say, Max Planck Institutes, and I asked, so what's your programming experience? Then a lot of people pointed, or the majority always pointed to MATLAB. If I go around now, the majority also typically points to Python already. So a lot of you will have Python programming experience already, and academic Python programming experience is that experience. So you need some really for data science and or machine learning quite a lot, for data analysts not necessarily, and then this really is something where you can upskill. Okay, so we've already introduced the distinction between data science and data analyst. If you have questions about those data roles or what they mean or what the difference is, please ask. Macarena, how do you see the difference between data analyst and data scientist, and perhaps also factor in the data engineer?
Well, basically, a data analyst, as the name suggests, analyzes data. Of course, data scientist as well, but mostly a data analyst uses BI tools, for example, like Tableau, Power BI, and so on, and create dashboards and probably write queries with SQL, and it is also involved in probably connecting those visualization tools to databases mostly. So probably you don't need such a level of Python, for example. While a data scientist is more focused, of course, there is a part that involves data analysis in the data science role, but also, most importantly, your job is to deploy, let's say, machine learning or deep learning models, try to put them into production, predictive models. So to say, that would be the main difference. While a data engineer is more in charge of the data pipeline of all the processes that are in the background. Let's say, as a data scientist, I would need a data engineer to connect all the data sources and put everything in place so I can get the data um, as in a good shape, if possible, or not, even though I might probably have to do some cleaning and preparation, but in any case, those connections, so to say, should be part of a data engineering role. I would say there is an overlap in any case, most probably in some of the roles, but I would say those are the main characteristics.
Okay, thank you, Macarena. I'm going to pick up, so this was George's question, can we briefly explain the difference? And then Patrick is asking, as an academic, one probably lacks business knowledge of data science problems encountered in industry and so on. How much emphasis should you put into gaining such knowledge? Okay, so putting this together, something you should consider. There are at least as many roles open for data analysts as there are for data scientists. Also, almost all companies now have data analysts, whereas not everybody can yet still really use data scientists. By this I mean, a data analyst typically handles a lot of data and generates insights, reports, or dashboards that have more immediate business relevance. Whereas the data scientist would typically actually handle a lot of data, but make a machine learn something like a recommendation engine so that it's all automated and the machine kind of, the algorithm makes the decisions, not the humans looking at the dashboard. So this said, moving into a data analyst role when you're coming from academia, in my experience, is easier and faster. Data scientist is actually more ambitious. Then you could start as a data analyst in a company, and if it has a data science department, still grow and move across. So that's also a possible avenue for you. Data analyst, Dina isn't here today to speak to this, but data analyst actually has the big fat advantage that you're often really closer to the business problems. And then overall, no matter whether you're an analyst or a scientist or even a data engineer, from our perspective, I guess, what companies really need to achieve in this decade is to get their so-called use cases into production. So what is a use case? A use case is actually a particular business issue or problem that you're trying to solve, either for an internal process or for your customer or for some such purpose. And you need to get it into production. That means you need to prepare your data, have a pipeline, build a model, put the model into production, keep it there, do something when you have model drift, perhaps renew, and so on, retrain, so continuously in production that serves a particular function and has an outcome that is somehow measurable as an improvement. Okay, so now here's this question of the business knowledge or your use cases or so. So this really is important. It's not like it's something you already need to bring with you, but if you are coming from a discipline, I don't know, biology, medicine, where use cases in industry or startups are clear to you already, then you already have that knowledge. If not, you will learn it on your job. You need to look at use cases, and this really makes the difference for your career. So you want to become a senior, you need to have use cases in production. It's not like you need to do this on your own or by yourself or whatever, but you need a company and a team that has use cases in production. If so, this is what gets you ahead. This is what's also more fun, I think. So this is really important. So you should put a lot of emphasis on understanding how use cases go in production, and actually which use cases are worth putting into production and which not. Yeah? Whether it's, so to speak, ready. Macarena, do you have any additional takes on that?
Yes, I think that if you don't want to be frustrated as a data scientist, try to join companies that have business cases for data science projects. Usually
Exactly.
companies at the very beginning, they need most probably a data analyst and a data engineer before the data scientist. That should be the last one to join in the team. Most
We have a
probably. It's not always the case.
yeah, we have a follow-up question about how competitive is the landscape at the moment. So how do you see it?
I think it is at the moment probably competitive because there are probably not so many positions at the entry level for data science, at least. That's how I see it. So companies are a little bit more conservative at the moment in hiring people. So they go more for people who already have experience in the field. So probably is more competitive at the entry level. That's how I see it, at least for data science. Not sure about data analyst, if it's also the case, because usually I see like twice as many job advertisements for data analysts as for data scientists.
Okay, so that was twice as many.
Mhm.
Yes, I would agree. And then I have a suggestion here also for looking at this. So, one way of looking at this was the roles. So data analyst, data scientist, data engineer, machine learning engineer. And it's important to get your head around it. But another question is, where are you actually headed to? So this is which industry, but also which type of company. And this is what's in front of you. So corporate startup consulting actually makes a difference. You probably have questions for this, and while you come up with your questions, I'm going to hand over to Macarena, who has covered consulting and startup. And maybe you could tell the audience what you think is the big difference or the big commonalities between startup and consulting and the data role.
Well, I think consulting is a very good start. For example, if you are coming from academia, because as a consultant, you have the chance to see different industries and different ways of dealing with data and different data problems, data infrastructures, and data business cases, if you want. So that's a very good starting point. The downside, so at least for a while, the downsides, I would say that mostly you join in projects that either already started or you start them but are not able to follow up on them. So it can happen, but most probably you won't follow one product or one project from beginning to end. So that's the downside, and that was the reason why I decided to leave consultancy after a while. I also consulted for corporate, as I must say. So I know a little bit about that. Um, s- of course, most probably, I mean, you can say much more, Chris, about it, but um, what you can expect there is a little bit more compared to a startup. It's probably more stable, or there is a clear career path. While in startups, depends on of course on the startup, it could be very variable actually, but you would be doing many things, not only typical. I mean, if you are a data scientist, you don't stick to that only. You do different things because that's what's necessary. You learn a lot of things, and you also have the chance to do things in the way you want, most probably, to shape them, which is, I would say, it's an advantage. But you have to um, But in any case, you should be careful when you join a startup. You should, first of all, know if they have the data infrastructure already in place. That's very important. Otherwise, you won't be able to do your job at all. And of course, as important as that they have a business case for machine learning or deep learning or whatever type of predictive model, let's say, because otherwise you won't be able to do something useful. You won't bring any business value to the company. So I think that's really important. But you have to be prepared to do a little bit of everything and try to move fast and quickly as much as you can in a startup. That's most probably the case.
Okay, so we've spoken about the role and we've spoken about the type of company, and then also the question is which industry. Now, why are we telling you this? We're telling you this because in our observation, talents want to start a data career. Great. And you have the numeracy, and often you also have the Python and SQL skills already, so also great. But now actually you are switching careers, particularly if you're leaving academia after a PhD or as a postdoc. This is also a real career switch. So the question is, what's your destination? Where are you going to? What would actually work for you, both in terms of having a meaningful career and also in terms of your job satisfaction? And I think what we're trying to argue here is that it's important to understand what role you want to have, whether you want to be more on the machine learning side or more on the analytics side. What type of company would work for you? So do you prefer big, stable companies with a large amount of corporate revenue? Are you open to the more risky adventure of a startup? Would you join a startup that is a scale up? So a company growing really, really fast, which means it's also a pressure cooker? Or would you like to be in a consulting firm that perhaps serves a particular industry or a variety of industries and do different kinds of projects, right? And then for which industry? So are you more in the pharmaceutical area, more in finance, more in automotive, pharma health, or mobility more general, or is it e-commerce, or what is it? Now, we totally appreciate that you may not have the answer tonight. That's fine. We will show you a bit later some tricks you can use to kind of move on this. And then here is an additional point about why I would like you to think about this and make it part actually of your LinkedIn profile or CV or whatever it is that you're using for searching for your first job. I want you to do that because it is much easier for somebody to hire you if they have a clear idea what you are looking for and what you're good at, right? So recruiting and hiring and the whole interview process and so on is a bit of a matchmaking. So the recruiters will dream of having 300 applications to select one person. Now, they may not get 300 relevant applications, but you get the drift here, right? So the issue always with searching for a job is that there are many equally qualified candidates, more or less. And then how do you make a difference? What makes an actual difference? So something that really makes a difference for companies, if they can see a profile, a kind of like idea that makes it clear that this is a good match. And I have an example from you. Actually, it goes back to this my time in boot camping. So Macarena knows him. It's Adam. It's a graduate who had kind of like a profile statement. And he said, I'm an electrical engineer with machine learning skills looking to help decarbonize the supply of heat and electricity. Just one sentence. I'm an electrical engineer, so this is my background. I have machine learning skills. You can go and check. I've done Python for 18 months and I can do a neural network. I have a clear sense of what I want to do. I want to help decarbonize the planet. And I also know in which area I want to do it. The supply of heat and electricity, so the energy industry or energy networks or some such sort. maybe solar panels on houses. So the industry is also clear. Now, if you were in that industry and you were recruiting, right? And so you came across a profile where right at the top it said exactly this: I'm an electrical engineer looking to decarbonize and I have ML skills. You would be interested, right? This kind of like, oh, okay, this is not, it's like, it's an interview as a company you don't really want to miss. So this is why which industry, what type of company, and so on is something you should spend time on, and get clear for you and have a plan A and a plan B or something like this, because it really, really helps you to move forward, and get the interviews and the process. So we're going to go into this a bit more detail. The industry-ready CV, it turns up here, it has 4 elements, and the example I just gave you was to focus your search with a professional mission, right? Decarbonize the heat of supply and electricity. Now, you get considered for the interview by highlighting your technical skills. I think that's clear. It's kind of like technical skills, the Python and SQL and whatever else you can do with this, also the numeracy or analytical skills. You make your life easier by also being able to show what your business skills are. If you're an academic at the moment, this is called transferable skills. You may already have heard of it. If not, ask your search engine, transferable skills, it'll show you. And then in your academic work, you may well already have had data experience. If you're here tonight and you have academic data experience, great, wonderful. In my personal opinion, academic data experience is really valuable because it typically means you have some sort of data that you got from somewhere and now you need to do something with it, clean or process or filter or whatever. You probably also need to do stakeholder management. You have some form of project management. You need to secure the outcome. You need to talk about or publish your outcome. So this is all pretty close to what it's like in business, even though the use case, of course, is different, but it's pretty close to that. And I actually think that academic data experience is more valuable, apologies to those on the online courses, but that academic data experience is more valuable than a Kaggle competition or a capstone project on an online platform. They're also useful, but this academic data experience, if this is really something you've done for 6 months, 2 years, 4 years, that's really great, and you need to find a way of translating it so that business people get what you are doing in general terms, okay? So those 4 elements constitute your industry-ready CV. And then there are other questions around visa, local language, and more. Now, we haven't had a question for a few minutes, so this is really back out to the audience, to you. I think Macarena and I, before we close this section, would like to have a question or 2 more. So if you could come up with something you want to know, please let us know now. Okay, I don't have a question coming in at the moment. Then let's move on. Are we doing? Okay, George is asking, are there more roles in software engineering compared to data science position? The broad answer is yes. And back out to you, George. When you say software engineer, do you mean something specific? So at the beginning, I spoke about the fact that we have 15 million professionals in software engineering and just 500,000 in data roles. This is 2020, 15 to 500,000. And from the 500,000, I don't know, maybe 200,000 were data scientists, but not really more. So yes, there are many, many more roles. And as data also becomes productionized and you need the operational side to it, the infrastructure and so on, there are also a lot of data roles for which software engineering and some grasp of software engineering is really important. Then we have another one. How important are German skills in getting hired in Germany? Macarena, this is for you. And then I'll comment. Yeah, I'm the native. You spent years in Germany.
Well, I think depends on what you want, actually. At least in Berlin, there is a huge startup scene where you only need English, really. But I guess that if you want to have a job in a more traditional German company or in a corporate, you definitely need German. I would advise to learn in any case, but yeah, I think the thing is, if you do it only in English, it's more competitive also, probably, at least in Berlin.
So I think the point here is that you can get a job without German in Germany, like in most other countries. You can now,
In Berlin, at least.
yeah, based on your English, particularly also actually, by the way, with consultancy firms often.
Yes.
And then I can say that as an adult, I spent some time in Italy and some time in Poland. And in both countries, I made the effort to learn the local language so that at least I could hold a dinner conversation or a lunchtime chat or something like this in the local language. And I think this always is a good idea, actually. So it's not always essential, but it actually does really help you. Okay, we have another one here. What does it take to qualify for a leading position? Okay, so Katarina asks, maybe not a big shot, but like be a lead data scientist. Macarena, you have an idea?
What does it take to qualify for a leading position? Well, at least some
Yes.
years of experience, definitely. In any case, some management experience and quality. I would say that in any case.
So I had a conversation earlier today with somebody working actually in Berlin who was kind of asking me also this question, so what does it take to be a senior? And I think the answer comes in three parts. So the first actually is you need to be in a company that actually recognizes senior data engineers or senior data scientists. Just like, Katarina, to your question, you would need a company that knows a tech lead or knows what a team lead is for data science, actually has that position. If not, you'd need to find out whether they're willing to create it. And to some extent, you become that if you ask for it, and then you get it, or if you don't get it, you get a roadmap how to get there in 12 months or 18 months or whatever it is. So I think this is, it really depends on the company. And that's really also always the first question you need to ask or look at. By the way, if the company doesn't know what a tech lead is or what a senior data scientist is, that's not a good sign. And then the company doesn't have a clear idea about data careers. Then next, so let's assume this is there. There's actually probably two ways this can go. So the first is, if you're looking at senior or lead, is that you're actually able to do your own work totally independently while also helping others and while also making sure that the project is on track. So if you've been in academia and you've worked as a project manager or you've seen people managing projects, you know what I'm talking about. This type of horizontal management and securing an outcome against a timeline and a budget and all these things that come with project management that qualify for you for a leading position. So this type of stuff. That's number one. Number two, a short answer and a bit blunt. Get a use case into production or get something into production that makes the company 100,000 or saves at least 100,000 or preferably more, right? So a business outcome. Something that is trackable and really has an impact on the bottom line. That is also really something that companies are looking for and need. So that's like that. Macarena, now we're getting questions. How important is it to be good with neural networks? Interesting.
Yeah,
So you have these years of experience now, and you've done various things in data. How often did you do a neural network?
not very often, to be honest, but depends on the company, depends on the business case. I mean, it's important to have the knowledge, have some experience, but don't think that everything that goes into production is a neural network. In many cases, it just isn't. And that's not bad at all, because whatever works, it's fine. And sometimes I mean, for neural networks, you need an amount of data that sometimes you don't have or your company doesn't have, for example, or it's not really necessary because it's not appropriate for the business case. So I would say yes. I mean, as a data scientist, you need to know that. But the opportunity to put that into production is also not that, doesn't come very often, I would say. Depends. Well, it depends in the industry. If you work in, you're a specialist in computer vision, of course, yes, or NLP. But otherwise, not really.
Oh,
Or
not really, yes. I have another question, perhaps the final one before we move on here to the next part. Would companies accept to train DC, I'm guessing data science, data engineer, data analyst, or they only need qualified people? Macarena, have you
I'm,
ever seen
I'm,
trainees?
I haven't, but I know that some companies do take trainees.
Okay.
It's not very often, I would say, but and also between a trainee and an experienced person, there is someone who's a junior, someone who
Mm,
is not a junior because they already had a first job and some experience, but is not yet a senior. So yeah, there is a whole spectrum in between.
yes, yes. So I actually, this is my personal opinion. I think the trainee in the data realm typically doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense in the exact sense that depending on the role, the technical skills are prerequisite. So the company assumes that you have them already. We've discussed this. Like you want to be a data scientist, you need at least 12 months of Python and the SQL. Therefore, they are expecting you to be able to do this, and they will not spend money on people learning Python on the job. They won't. That you actually do learn Python on the job and get better at it, and so on, is clear. But they will define a threshold, and they won't accept anybody below that, which is also why I think the concept of trainee is rarely used. Actually, rarely. Okay, I want to move on. We'll pick up your questions as we go on, and I'll come back to Patrick's in a minute. So, roadmap to getting hired. What do you need to do? So, we've already been talking about this, and this really is a summary, and then there will be 4 summary slides. So, the way this works is you need to do some data career exploration, which is basically answering the question: do I really want a data career? Do I want to do data Monday to Friday, 9 to 5? Second is, if yes, where do I want to go? Okay, getting as much clarity on that as is possible. It's hard, I know. This is the hardest part, actually. But it's essential that you have an idea which direction you go so that companies understand that you're moving in their direction. Number 2. Number 3, then actually is job search versus training. So this is getting your CV ready, getting your LinkedIn profile ready, reaching out to your network, finding the so-called side entrants from companies. So not just applying to HR, but find data people already working there and talking to them. So you're searching. Part of that is actually a decision to perhaps go for further training, like do online courses or do a boot camp. It really depends where you want to go. And one easy way to think about this for the Python users among you, so if I say to you scikit-learn, and you say, yeah, I've used that, or you say, I know what it is, but not really. So scikit-learn is one of these basic libraries that you need for machine learning. So if you have that, and then others stuff that is associated with that, you probably already are moving in the direction of data science and machine learning. And if not, yeah, if it's pandas and numpy, well, then it's more in the analytics space. I'm simplifying, but you get the idea. Okay, so search versus training. Where are you? What kind of job can you get? And then really actually already the start. And I think Macarena earlier made the comment, move as early as possible. I think the default answer is it's more important to search than to train. Would you follow?
Yes, I would like to emphasize something that you already said. at the very beginning, like is a data career what one is looking for? Because I personally come from an academic background, and I have other colleagues who switch from academia to industry and not necessarily in the data field. So I think that's very important to get to know if that's something you would like to do, because there are other options as well in the industry. So try to talk to people who are already doing that, and reach out and try to find out if that's something you would like to do. And then try to start as soon as possible. I agree, start searching as soon as possible, and also tailor your CV, and in a way hiring managers can understand what you've been doing in academia. And yes, I think that's the most relevant advice.
Thank you for that. I'm going to go back to some of the questions. Apologies for muting myself. I have my son in the background, as it goes sometimes. So, how can one showcase previous academic data work in the CV? Macarena, how would you look at that?
Well, try to put it in a way that someone who has no idea about academia, and especially someone who has no idea about your research field and the academic world, or never heard of anything like that, would understand. Because that's what a hiring manager is, someone who doesn't know anything about academia. So I would not highlight publications per se. I would try to explain in very easy words what you did with data, right? And forget maybe a little bit about um, the domain, unless you work in something like computer vision or optimization or something very clearly. But if it's not like that, if you work, for example, in agriculture, but work with machine learning models or whatever, try to explain that in a way that someone who's not in the field would understand.
Okay, thank you for that. We have another question called, do you think someone would be favored for a data science position with a master's in data science over someone with a PhD?
Over someone with a PhD who already has experience with machine learning and modeling? Not necessarily. In any case, experience would be, in that case, more valued than anything else, than someone just a recent graduate in data science, for example. Depends how you write your CV. I would say no, it's not. I wouldn't say someone with a master's in data science is favor over that person with a PhD with experience in modeling and machine learning. Not necessarily.
Yes, exactly. And then the question does actually highlight something. So it's 2023. There are the online courses, there are university courses, there are increasingly more university degrees in data. We can discuss the quality of a lot of these data science degrees, particularly from universities that kind of reinvented themselves with some sort of data degree in the last 5 years. But it's there. So there's an increasing number of people that are learning this. And then sometimes we have the situation that at the moment there are perhaps even more talents than companies can hire for. And then please do remember overall that the field is growing and will continue to grow rapidly. So in the background, we've been looking at this data career exploration and the domain choice. So if you're thinking about this, or you already know that you want to do this, for figuring out where you want to go, you can you can use your network. It's really interesting actually to go and talk to some people in your network or in your city, or possibly even through a meetup, that already have a data position. Yeah, go and invite them for a coffee, talk for half an hour, have a lunch date, something like this. Ask them at a meetup to talk about their experience, and make them talk about their experience, not just in terms of which Python tools are they using, but rather actually what the rest of the work looks like. What is the use case that they're looking at? Why are they in the industry that they chose? What does it mean to work in that industry? Would they do it again? These types of questions. Yeah. So the other factors around it that really make a big difference and that are summarized here, so to speak, as the question of your domain choice, where you want to go. So then moving forward to what we already discussed, search versus trading. And then the important part here is something I want to leave you with or want you to take away from this is when you get there, please, really please, do not apply only to HR. Okay? So this is really important when you get to the search phase. If you think that it's enough to send your LinkedIn profile, if there's a LinkedIn application, you just hit you just hit the send button, or if it's an application form, you send your CV or you copy and paste parts of your CV into something and send it to HR. You can do that, and chances are it won't really work well for you. And chances are it won't really work well for you because the field has gotten bigger. There are a lot of people that are, principally eligible for these types of jobs. A lot of people are doing the same. They're just hitting the send button. And then on the other side, you have human resources trying to make sense out of this. And it's actually hard because for HR, data positions are just one of many positions in the company. They have no special expertise. Maybe they have some sort of score sheets where they're trying to score some sort of keywords they find on your CV. Maybe a machine is reading your CV if it's a bigger company. And if a machine is reading your CV, by the way, please use a single column CV. So machines still have problems reading 2-column CVs. They may produce garbage. So use a single column CV if you're feeding your machine and it's a PDF. If it's their application template and you're copy and pasting, then the machine will of course read that. So you're doing all of that, but you're then still not doing the most important thing. And the most important thing is to be proactive. So I spoke about the search and mission statement, that's important, but it's really also using that to reach out to people that already work in the industry and already work in companies that you would like to be in. And here is a fun fact for you. Take the consultancy firms, also the big consultancy firms. Almost all of them have a bring a friend policy. So a bring a friend policy is a consultant working for the company brings the CV or the LinkedIn profile of a friend, so somebody they know, for HR internally to consider. And then two things will happen. If the person gets hired, the consultant is actually likely to get a bonus. So there is a financial incentive. And because there is a financial incentive, if the consultant already working in the company really is convinced that you should get an interview and they're forwarding it to HR, they will call HR after 1 week and ask where your interview is. They will do so because there's a bring a friend bonus. So you really need to look at this and you really need to get proactive and talk to people in the field, talk to people at companies that you want to be at, and sort your job search through that preferably by being proactive, not just by applying. Okay, this is a long speech from myself that I like to give. Macarena, what's your take on this?
Yes, I absolutely agree. And not only consultancy companies, also sometimes startups have these policies, or small companies as well. Just try to find out, like, if they have this policy of bring someone you know and you get a bonus. It's also common in other structures other than consultancy.
Okay, this is the last part, the data career start. So what we've shown you is actually something we like to think of as 4 steps, 4 simple steps that have been tried by many people and work. And it's a journey that should take you 6 to 9 months. Possibly you can do it faster, but it should take you 6 to 9 months. The first one, the data career exploration, so this bit here at the beginning, is relatively fast. You just need to figure out if you're going forward with this. The domain choice may take you a little bit, and so will the search process. You need to get your stuff ready. You need to apply. You need to go through these interview processes, so that takes some time. But on the whole, it's a journey that takes you like 6 to 9 months. And then when you get to the data career, when you get through the interview process and the question of whether people will put an offer on your table, there are some things to consider. So when you look at overall this recruiting process, you need to be aware that there may be coding challenges that you're getting, and that there may be personal interviews that are rather different than the ones that you're used to in academia. So in academia, of course, you know the standard procedure, to my knowledge, to this day is everybody sends in their application. There's a short list of 6 people. The 6 people come and give a talk to the department, and then somebody gets chosen, and then there's somebody in second place. Now, in industry, there will be more interviews. Amazon is famous for having 6 rounds. Other companies do a lot of rounds too. So there's more to go through, and you need to be ready for this. You also need to be ready that the questions may come from completely different angles. And by the way, okay, it's also a learning. So if you get invited to an interview, please do the best. And if you don't get the job, okay, disappointing, but you've practiced the interview process. This really is also important, not to get discouraged. Yeah. So by the time you've done it the third time, you will already be considerably better at handling this. So you need to go through this. For most of you, it'll be multiple interviews, and that's fine. There's one tricky question that comes up, possibly at the beginning, but always in the interview process, and this is about the salary. And it's a way to get it wrong. By the way, saying that you want 45,000 euros because you think you're a beginner, I'm talking about Germany, is not a good idea. You need to have a realistic expectation, and you can do that, for example, by using your search engine, and ask for salary surveys, data scientists, salary surveys, data analysts. You will see often it's broken down by country, by city, by role. So all of this information is available. So you could at least use that. And when you get there, please give a range. So indicate something like, I've done my market research, I think I'm good at this and that and the other, and my expectation is 65 to 70. Why like this? You indicate a bit of flexibility, and you invite the company to kind of discuss this with you, and reach an agreement of a base salary plus a bonus. So I think this is really important. And it's important that you don't go in too low and that you don't go in too high. This always ends the interview process, okay? I'm talking about this because this is how to kill it. You go in too low, they think you don't know your value, the interview process ends. You go too high, I've seen this from the inside, the company will go, we would never be able or willing to pay that, and the interview process stops. So please get this right. Macarena, final comments on this search process.
Yes, absolutely. Be prepared that to go through several interview processes. That's normal. So if you get to the final steps, congratulations. There are usually several steps, like you said, Chris. Not only in Amazon, I've had 6 interviews in small companies that were not Amazon at all. So that's quite common. You have, of course, most probably a first interview that's an HR type of interview, where they ask you about your CV or experience. Probably an HR person doesn't know much about technical details. Then you have technical interviews with or without challenges that you have to solve. And then most probably then you have to explain what you did in the challenge. And then usually also you meet the team of different people, not only other data scientists, but also other data scientists, probably also people from a product team or data engineers or other product managers. And then most probably at the very end, someone from the C-level. I would say be prepared for that. It's a long process. And like you said, Chris, you learn from that. Even if you don't get the job, you really learn from that. And you can always, if you made it into the final without being chosen, you can ask then, how could you get better, what was missing. You can go back to the people who interviewed you and ask for that. That's also possible.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question on, the experience, so to speak. Um, Let me get back to that in a minute. So we want to now turn it pragmatically and talk about the industry-ready CV or your industry-ready LinkedIn profile or both, and remind you that you need to, that your LinkedIn profile or your CV really has four essential components. There will be other things on it like your education or so, but to get interviews, these are the four things that need to be on it. So you need to really have a technical skills profile. So this is not just listing your technical skills, it's really actually showing whether you want to be a data scientist, data analyst, or whatever, a profile, skills profile. Two is actually demonstrating that you have some transferable skills or business skills so that you have an idea that you're moving to industry. Then you need to be able to talk about your data experience. And the final part was that mission statement that actually should go at the top of your CV, right on the first page, and also right at the top of the about section of your LinkedIn profile, really. Okay, while you look at some examples, I'm going to go, so this is an example of a technical skills profile. You can go and have a look at it while we go back to some of the questions, actually. And the way we're going to proceed now is we're going to take your questions while showing you examples. And if you want to query the examples, please send questions, and we might also comment. So, 6 years of academic experience, Macarena. Is that already a senior data scientist?
I would say no, unless, I mean, to be considered a senior data scientist, you have to have some real world, let's say, business model into production, I would say.
Yeah.
But I would also say that person is also not a junior. It really depends on what the academic experience actually is. But let's say that there is some experience in data handling and let's say machine learning or something. That person is also not a junior. But I would not um, apply for a senior also directly. It might work, but I would say for a senior, people expect that you already worked in the industry and at least put some models into production. What's
Okay,
what's
I
your
have.
opinion, Chris?
I would concur here. You will not. You shouldn't be a junior, but you also won't be getting hired as a senior. I don't think so. Okay, along those lines, without any work experience, degree, or bootcamp training, would a PhD in a STEM subject plus Coursera get hired?
I would say yes. Depends how you. I mean, we have a CV in the background, and I would say yes if you know how to um, show your skills in your CV. Yes, and of course, and you have the skills in any case. I mean, that you learn during your PhD in a STEM subject or so.
Yes. So I have a number of comments here, and I want to be explicit. My personal opinion, but let me be explicit. So you've already got a PhD in STEM, so you're highly numerate, and you've done your stuff through Coursera. Great. Now, if you've done your stuff through Coursera, do you need to do another bootcamp, or do you need to do a bootcamp? No, you don't. The bootcamp will not teach you much more than you have learned on Coursera. It's just a different format, right? On Coursera, you go it on your own and you do it all online. And the bootcamp offers the advantage of bringing together a group and making you do it every day for 12 weeks. But they're kind of equivalent. Also, if you have a PhD and you've done your stuff on Coursera, no, you will not be doing a master's science in data science. A master's in data science, that's a waste of time and money and makes no difference. So no. And that if you have a PhD, you don't yet have work experience, that's also kind of clear. I mean, you've been doing a PhD. So this is the point. If I look at it, you're posing it as a question, but there is no good reason to do boot camp. A master's in data science will not make a difference for you, and you don't have work experience because you've been doing a PhD. So the answer is no, no, no. This actually means then, with your PhD and your certificates, you need to make this work and you need to have a go at it. And this is the point why we're showing you these technical skills profiles and other such stuff. So you need to make it work in presenting yourself, if you so like, in marketing yourself. okay? In figuring out which domain you want to be in, which type of company you want to join, that's where you need to put in the work. And this is really important. This is also really important. So I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but I do want to say clearly, PhD myself, it is sometimes very tempting if you've been in academia for a long time to think you can solve the problem with yet more education. Okay? So a boot camp, another degree, an internship, whatever. It's really tempting to think that you can solve it with more education. You can't. And you shouldn't even try. Okay? Find another way. This is why also we're doing this, and this is why we're getting so practical about what your CV should look like. Please use that other route and make it work. Okay, next question up, or follow-up question was like the portfolio. Actually, Macarena, can you take this one? So how would you handle this portfolio question?
Well, you need to show that you have coding skills, for example, somewhere, maybe with a GitHub project, um, or a Kaggle one, um, or maybe if you used code during your PhD or your master's, you can show that, but it has to be explainable in an easy way that someone who's not from your academic field can understand. But there has to be something you can show. I mean, if you don't have any work experience yet.
Exactly. So I have a question here. Do I need to include in my CV that I have a PhD, or should I just include the master's? So if you have a PhD, you must include the PhD in
Yes.
your CV. If you don't, I get the thought, but if you don't, this is kind of like, it's like doing the George Santos, right? It'll be falsifying your CV. So it's just not an option, actually. Before we move on to the next question, I just one comment for you. I've shown you three examples of, well, we have shown you three examples of technical skills. Perhaps just as a general comment, look at how they're organized, okay? So it says technical skills. Here it says Python developer. Here it says Python, so and so many MATLAB, yeah, Bash, Git, SQL. So it lists the core, and then it kind of organizes the rest. Here it says data analysis, data visualization, and machine learning, and IoT, and then specifies, okay? Here it says data analytics, databases, statistics and modeling, and data visualization. Okay? So there are different ways of organizing this, and actually it's important that you organize this because this is what companies look at. This is what gets you past the no. This is what gets you into the pile to be interviewed. That they look at this and they think, okay, actually we want a data analyst and we need somebody that's good with databases and gets statistics. This person is getting the interview. The same here is, we need somebody. We need somebody actually. This is for a company that is in the IoT space that actually has hardware, is manufacturing hardware, and is putting data into hardware. Machine learning here is just scikit-learn, so it's there, but it's basic. But the point is that there's a lot around visualization and data analysis, and the person has IoT experience. Okay. So this is interesting for this type of company. I don't know, think household appliances. And please really do this. It's important to have a profile. It, of course, means that some companies will look at it and say, no, this is actually not what we're looking for. And then that's fine, because you need to find the companies that look at this and say, this is what we're looking for. We need to interview this person. Okay? Get your technical skills profile right, please. Okay, I'm going to move on to showing you, transferable skills example, why we do more questions. So, when does it make sense to do a PhD before moving to industry? What would be the advantages? When does it make sense?
I don't know. If you want to move to industry and it's clear to you, why would you do a PhD? Unless there is no other option and you would like to, okay, say it's not easy for me to find a job at the moment, so I rather have some income for some years and get a PhD, but I don't see the advantage, to be honest.
Yeah. So I actually also have an answer for this. So if you're looking, if this is a question that says, does it make sense to do a PhD in data, machine learning, and so on, as computer science and so on and so on, before moving to industry, and what would be the advantages, then the answer for the answer for Europe, but possibly also the answer for anywhere else is it might make sense if you have the time and the energy and the funding. If you, first of all, take a list of the top 10 or 20 machine learning, data science, computer vision, or whatever departments or research centers for whatever region you're looking at. Okay? So if in Europe you go and do a PhD with INRIA, so the Institut National de Recherche d'Information Automatique, if I got that right, so the leading center for computer science and machine learning in France. Okay. Or in Germany, it's the equivalent of that, some Max Planck Institute or one of the really good universities in machine learning. There's maybe a handful. Okay. If it's something like this, then yes, it of course makes a difference. There's an obvious advantage also because they have an alumni network and three other things. But if it's not that, okay, if it's not with a leading machine learning department that has strong industry connections, I don't see the advantage, to be frank. Here's somebody talking who actually has a PhD, so I don't see the advantage.
Yes,
Macarena?
I agree. I also have a PhD, and unless I agree with you, if it's something very specific, something in the field, something well, some people do it together with Amazon or one of those companies. In that case, yes, of course, that's a huge advantage. But if that's not your field, if you are in STEM and not directly into some research in machine learning per se, I would say no, don't do it.
Yeah. And please also remember, just like industry at the moment is catching up to the data economy, academia is catching up to data stuff as well. I mean, there are just not that many good departments. And it by definition, yeah, it's a young field. Okay, I think we've kind of run out of questions for the moment. So if you have more questions, or if we forgot your question and you would like to remind us, now's the moment. While we wait for more questions, I'm going to make you look at this transferable or business skills issue. So I spoke about the fact that technical skills, get you past the no. They get you in this pile to be interviewed. But there's something else that you can do to make a company really interested, and this is what you're looking at, your transferable skills or your business skills. And if you look at how we've done it, you see again, it's organized. Here you see project management, strategic thinking, interpersonal communication, expertise sharing. Give you another example by looking with you at the next one. Oh no, that's already data experience. Sorry, look at the one before. Hardware design, organizational communication, coaching, leadership. Okay, these can be different key concepts, but some key concepts. And then you see here that there are bullet points. And if you go and look at the bullet points in detail, you will see that they're always very specific. So here's how I like to think of it. Something that's really painful for me is to look at CVs or LinkedIn profiles that list soft skills. And they typically have this kind of random list of soft skills. Creative thinking, communication, whatever. Yeah, it's just a list. It's not interesting. What is interesting is to understand what your 2, 3, 4 business skills are and what specifically you've already done that proves beyond reasonable doubt that you know what you're doing, that you have the experience. And you all do. I mean, by definition, once you're 25, 27, 30 years old, you've got these skills. You just need to be clear which ones are your strong suit and which ones you actually want to advertise, okay? And then when you do, you need to find a way of advertising them really to the point. So it's a sentence that is a bullet point that is like 7 words max. I understand some of these are a bit longer, but be short and be really, really specific. Like, I won 4 competitive calls, or I've been the principal investigator of X research projects, resulting in Y peer-reviewed publications, or I've given, in 3 years, I've given 20 plus talks to international audiences greater than up to 100 people, or with more than 100 people, or something like this. And Just in case you're wondering and you find that this somehow sounds a bit bland, right? I've given 20 talks in 3 years to international audiences, some greater than 100 people. Yeah, it sounds bland because it doesn't say what you talked about and what specifically the audience is, but it serves the purpose. It serves the purpose because it says, you know how to speak, you've spoken repeatedly, you can go on a public stage, maybe you're nervous, maybe you're not nervous, but you've done it so often, you know what you're doing, and you will get to the end of your presentation. And this is important, okay? Because also in business contexts, particularly, for example, if you're a consultant, you have to present all the time. And this is really valuable. And even if you're not in a consultant, but working in a startup or corporate, there are these stakeholders whom you have to go to and talk to and present. So this counts. And what you need to do is you need to find the essence that's, so to speak, business relevant. Yeah, and it's in the repetition and how often you do it and to how many people and so on and so on. This is why this is so powerful and really helps HR to tick the green boxes and say this is good, this fits, they've got skills that we're looking for, and helps you move forward to the interview process. So long speech, Macarena, you can add something if you like.
Yes, just say that there are some things that in academia, when we are there, seem very obvious, like giving presentations and presenting your data to different audiences. For us, it's what we do every week, most probably in some, I don't know, seminar or yeah, it's a very common thing. But this is very highly appreciated in industry, for example, how to, I mean, how to give your presentation, how to present your data to people who are not from your field or your department. We don't see that as an important thing while we are doing in academia, but it's really important to highlight that, because this is important in industry and not only in consultancy, even in startups. I mean, I have to present my data to departments or people who are not engineers or data scientists, but I need them on board to do my work. So I need them to understand what I'm doing and to understand why I need their help. So this is really important.
Exactly. So we've spoken about those two components. Now we talk about data experience. We also had a question along that line. How do you present data experience in your CV? Here's an example for you to look at. So this is the type of text that you would put on a CV, possibly even also on your LinkedIn profile. Why this type of text? The point is you want to show your data experience not just for the purpose of showing it, but for the purpose of convincing the other side to give you interviews, to offer you a job down the road. And again, for them, it's important to understand that you have the experience and to understand, so to speak, the parameters of that experience. Okay, so parameters means what did you do, how often did you do this, what was the volume of data, what type of data did you use, and generally in which domain are you talking. The example that I'm showing you here is actually from political science. So this is a numeric political scientist that's done a lot of research based on survey data. And there are companies in the political space or in marketing or in other such areas where this type of data is really important. So that fits that, and you can show your experience. And what you really try to do is you do an exercise, if you so like, in science communication, but now it's data communication. Macarena just mentioned this, right? Talking to stakeholders, talking to people that are not data literate. So this is the point. You write your data experience together so that your grandmother would have a decent chance of getting the gist of it, And that's really the point. Generalizing it and putting it down in general terms so that a layperson gets it. The specialist that might be interviewing you somewhere down the line can always ask you more specific questions, and they will know what to ask. But the non-data literate person or the non-data experienced person needs a more general description to be able to understand what you're doing, and this helps build trust and confidence for companies that are looking to hire you. So writing down this type of data experience, or here I called it a data vignette, doing this and sticking it on your CV in your professional experience really helps you. I'm looking to see. Okay, we have 20 past 7 Berlin time. So this is the final 10 minutes and your chance to ask us any final questions you might have before we complete for today. You can ask us, please, about technical skills, transferable skills, your data stuff. I've shown you 3 examples here as well. And I'm just going to move on to the search and mission statement and discuss with Macarena for you how we can use that. So actually, Macarena, so you've changed jobs quite a few times in the last six
Yes.
years,
Yes.
which is fine. I think this is also part of how the industry is going at the
Hmm.
moment.
Yes.
How do where do you see yourself in terms of, you said the company you're working for at the moment is like-minded. How
Hmm.
did you find them and why are you working for them?
Well, I found them on LinkedIn. Uh, I found the job advertisement there. I liked what they are actually doing. It's like they provide um, mental health services for other companies. So companies can hire like-minded services, and then their employees can then, for example, book one-on-one sessions with a therapist, or group sessions with other people to talk about specific topics, or meditation webinars and so on. So I like that. That product. I like that they offer some mental health services. That's why I decided to apply there. But when I had the job interview, for me it was important to ask about the data infrastructure that they had in place, to see if they actually were able to put some machine learning models into production, and what was the business case for that. What was the business case for machine learning models, for example. That's something I think it's very important to ask from the very beginning, like make it clear that that you have the infrastructure, the data also, and the business case, and the willing to move forward with the machine learning project.
Thank you. There's a question for you. What is a skill or the skill that you had to learn when you switched to industry that you did not expect to need? It's a tough one, actually.
Yes,
Was
it
this?
is a tough one. Well, I had to learn things that I actually didn't know about business processes, or products, or a product cycle, or how products are developed in a company. What are the different departments? What are different roles about, like product owners or product managers or things like that? What do these people do? I didn't know what it was. Actually, I had to learn that. Um, yeah, I think that was or learn, yeah, about some tools, about, yeah, that are not difficult. It's not difficult to learn, but it's something that you didn't know it existed, because in academia there's nothing like that, for example. And how to track everything you do, usually, because in academia you track more or less what you do, but not every week, not every day in a meeting, for example, things like that.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to get you to look at this search and mission statement for a second. So, how does this work, and then why like this? So it works like this. It says here, I'm a data scientist with a PhD. So the thing is, when you write such a statement on your LinkedIn profile or on your CV, you need to write it for the role that you're looking. So I'm a data scientist, I'm a data analyst, and so on. What doesn't work is I'm a researcher. It's the wrong framing. It's the wrong, the person reading this will be in the wrong mind frame. So you need to say, I'm a data scientist with a PhD. And then you can say what your PhD was focused on, if that's relevant, or you just say, I have a PhD in microbiology. Okay, then will need to say something about your experience with data processing, modeling, Python, scikit. So it's some sort of sentence. I have X years of experience with so and so and so. perhaps also something you're really good at, and so on. So this is sentence number 2. So the reader has an idea of the role that you're looking for, what your background is education-wise, and what you bring to the table. And then actually the third sentence is kind of stating where you want to go. So looking forward. I'm looking for a new challenge in Barcelona, Madrid, or Lisbon. So this person really wanted to be in one of those 3 cities, nowhere else, from October 2021. So this was a while ago, preferably in a leading business team mitigating climate change and reducing the carbon footprint. So he was also quite clear what kind of job he was looking for. Actually, he got exactly that in Barcelona. And that also, why do it like this? Of course, when you write it like this, there are numerous companies and jobs where this is not applicable, and the company will say, no, this is not a fit. Yeah, sure. But the point is, when there is a company where this is a fit and you've written it, they will recognize the fit, and this is what you need. So the point here always is to remember that the recruiting game, unfortunately, always means that you have long odds. Yeah? You're the one applicant out of 10, 50, 100, 200 people also interested in the job. And the company proactively, possibly trying to recruit people by using recruiters and so on and so on. So there's always a lot of competition by definition. So they need a good reason to interview you. And such a mission statement is such a good reason because you're absolutely clear about who you are and where you want to go. And this really makes it easy for the other side, if this is the direction that they're thinking too, to say, okay, this, we can't miss interviewing this person. That's the point. You can't miss interviewing. And here's then a final for you for a data analyst with a PhD in computation physics. Somebody looking in Hamburg. Actually, she's working in Hamburg now. So that worked as described here as well. With that, we are actually down to our last 3 minutes. So I'm going to go and look at any final questions.
There are some questions about
Yes.
yeah, what do I miss about academia?
Yes, so there will be another webinar in a few weeks, and here's the tough question. There you go, a tough and personal one. Are you happy and fulfilled with the switch to the industry from academia? Or you miss academia a lot?
No,
I
I
don't miss
don't.
academia. You also don't, okay.
No, I don't. No.
Yeah,
But
no.
it doesn't mean that other people won't.
Yes.
I personally don't. No, I don't miss academia.
What is the one thing you miss about academia? I don't miss anything.
I don't
Do
miss
you?
anything either.
Okay. We by the way, in our defense, we've been gone so long. It's hard to remember already. Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to confirm, is it okay to state I'm a data scientist with a PhD? Yes, exactly. That's the point. You write it exactly like that, even if you haven't actually been a data scientist in industry. No, the employer will not think that you're misrepresenting yourselves because you are saying I'm a data scientist with a PhD in XY. Okay? And this is really important. You need to help the company evaluate you as a data scientist, not as a
Exactly.
researcher.
If you apply for a data scientist position, it's because you think you are a data scientist.
Yeah, exactly. So this is really important. It's a mistake I've seen so many times on CVs. So if you're coming out of academia, never ever please say I'm a researcher. What is HR supposed to think? That you want another research job? Okay, and if you don't believe me, please just imagine it's Friday, it's 2 p.m., HR is looking at your stuff, they're tired, they want to go home, they're looking for an excuse not to interview you. So really make it easy for them. I'm a data scientist with a PhD. Okay, okay, thanks for the confirmation. There you go, welcome. Then I'm going to wrap this up relatively quickly because we're done with our time. So I'm showing you really rapidly just a few slides with ideas about how to choose your industry. So you can go and find industries where it says here everyone's winning, but some industries are winning bigger. So you can check through your search engine in which industries is investment into data or machine learning the highest. Which industries benefit most from machine learning and data? That helps you. You can go and find so-called market maps. So this is a market map of top AI startups a while ago. These AI startups are lumped into categories. What's interesting for you is the categories: marketing, finance, customer relationships, generative AI, language-based stuff, and so on and so on. These categories is something you can look at, and you can, for example, go and just simply cross out all the categories you're not interested and see what remains. So this is a fast track to getting this. The AI in fintech, so you even get it more specifically for an industry and you see certain categories. I'm showing this to you because you can use this type of survey information, market maps, country maps, to kind of get a quick understanding about what type of industry you're interested in and what definitely not. And because domain choice is really hard, okay? There's even market maps for AI infrastructure, there's a European database, and so on. So there's lots of information there to really help you get going with your domain choice and figure out which type of company you specifically want to target. And it's not just about your mission statement, it's also about you need to be proactive when searching. And proactive means that you need a list of like 10 or 20 companies that you actually want to work for. So the pointer, yeah, make yourself a list of the 20 companies, that's your plan A, and go and find somebody on the inside. Go and find somebody on the inside to talk to. Umesh, thank you for your comment here. Thank you very much. I hope it's also been useful to all of you. Final slide. So why do I think, this really is the slide, why do I think the next 10 years are better than the last 10 years? So the last 10 years have been the beginning, they've been experimental, there have been small data teams, there's even been the lone data scientist, and all of this has been great, but it's only ever was the beginning. The next 10 years are about organizing this stuff at scale. And of course, many companies still need to work on the collect and store and transform data. But this is the basis and the foundation, and it's great that it's being done, because actually organizing AI at scale is what's going to happen in the next 10 years. And I just think you're going to have much better careers than everybody had in the last 10 years, precisely because some scale is there. Macarena, your final words.
Yes, the field is developing, growing, probably. Um, I think that in the future, I mean, you will, for probably any job that is well paid, you will need at least a level of knowledge about AI, machine learning, or whatever you want to call it. So this is really super relevant. And I think AI will reach many fields that hasn't yet. I know that now is a little bit tough, probably for the entry level. It doesn't mean it's not possible. It means it takes a little bit longer than before. But I think if you are if you have a PhD in STEM and have knowledge of that kind, it's still a very good choice.
Thank you, Macarena. Then, thank you very much again to everybody who's stayed with us till the end. Good luck. If you want to, you can find Macarena and myself on LinkedIn. Macarena
Yes.
always likes to add, please tell her that you were
Yes.
attending the webinar, so please do that. You can also find the AI Guild online if you like at theguild.ai and apply to join if you are looking forward to a data career. And other than that, thank you very much and good night.
Good night. Thanks a lot for joining, and thank you, Chris.